Evan, let's turn our attention to football in Galway. Alanna Cunnane has been covering this story on the latest episode of Coigig, and there's been developments in the last 24 hours or so where Galway United have issued a statement about the fact that there may or may not be a senior team playing in the Women's National League next year. Alanna, good morning to you. How are you getting on?
Hi guys, how are you?
A little bit confused, I have to say. I read the statement from Galway United saying, we are united, we'll continue to be united, and we're very interested in making sure that we have women's football in the club. But they didn't commit to having a senior team playing in the Women's National League next year. What's your understanding of what we're supposed to read into Galway United's statement yesterday?
Yeah, I think it is widely believed that Galway United will be the ones to hopefully take over Galway WFC. But as I say, there was kind of a bit of contradictory language in it, in that they say they fully understand the significant challenges, both financial and operational, associated with fielding a senior and underage squads on a national level. So kind of letting it be known there that they do realise it's a lot of money, effort and personnel that'll have to go into this if it does go ahead. So you'd wonder, is that kind of a cry to see, can they get some people involved? Basically, from what it can be understood from the existing board, there's kind of 5 people there, and they seem to kind of have said that while they've done all this great work, and which they have, that they don't seem to be interested in kind of continuing on. So it'll be kind of interesting to see what happens there. Also interesting that they've mentioned that that they have to field the 3 teams. So that would be incorporating as well, I presume, the under-17 and the under-19 teams, which have a serious amount of young talent as well. But you'd wonder, there was no view there to kind of a longer-term thing as to academies or that kind of thing. And you'd also wonder, if they were to take on the same people that have already been involved, would the kind of same lack of forward thinking maybe stick around with that? We saw what happened with Ruth Fahy, who everyone, including myself, thought it was a great appointment. But as we all know, that didn't last too long. So yeah, kind of a contradictory statement in that they say their development are committed to the development of women's football in the area, and that they'll now begin the process of dialogue. But you just kind of wonder why that dialogue hadn't happened before the original statement from Galway WFC was released.
Yeah, it from the outside, this appears like there's a bit of brinkmanship happening, where the club have decided that they can't continue, and I don't know, is it to maybe accelerate the process, where they button up against some kind of frustration that Galway United weren't automatically stepping in? Is it a way of making everybody in Galway aware of the fact that actually an opportunity exists here, or potentially a bit of a disaster exists here for women's football, and unless everybody gets their heads together really quickly and somebody comes in and shows some leadership, that nothing's going to happen? Were they shaming Galway United a little bit into, getting, okay, this is actually real, this is happening, and unless you step in and fix this, nothing's going to happen? Is there an element of that?
I think there is a little bit, like you say, kind of a bit of a bargaining chip, but in that same realm, it is kind of a bit interesting, because it's like when teams put in an interim manager until the end of the season, because like nobody knows where their long-term future lies. And then also in the short term, they've brought all this media attention upon themselves that could well have been avoided had that dialogue taken place behind the scenes. But in that, like we're saying, it looks like that may have come about as a result of maybe trying to jolt that into action from Galway United. It would be an interesting one to see them take it over. There are 10 teams in the Women's National League right now, and 7 of them are affiliated with men's sides. I suppose that kind of raised questions as to whether they should be mandated to be affiliated. But then you have the likes of Peamount United, who wouldn't have a male equivalent. DLR Waves would kind of play at the Belfield Bowl, so you'd think that the obvious option would be UCD. But then it's like, are the FAI insistent that they persist this one club kind of model? Because there are other teams, and we talked about this on Coigig, trying to get into the Women's National League for a number of years now. Shamrock Rovers and Cove Ramblers, I think, just to name a few, but there's lots more too. And all of those had to have proper academy structures to enter, the right coaching systems. And even then, they might not get the opportunity, because I know they're not keen to let a load enter in one season and see a few of them collapse, like let's say like happened Kilkenny just a few years ago. So yeah, obviously that mindset can't be enacted retrospectively with the likes of other teams already in the league. But it is interesting that if they were to form as like a completely new entity, and I'm not saying that applies to Galway in this case, that they would have to have all these kind of structures in place.
It's funny, like Alanna, when the statement came in yesterday to the office, I think 3 or 4 of us all read the statement and saw it in maybe 3 or 4 different ways in terms of what it meant. Like, obviously we don't really know at this stage, but like, would you take from the fact that the statement has been released that it is more likely than not that a team will be put in next season, or would you say that Galway United are releasing this statement maybe because of local pressures being linked with them and taking over the women's team, or is this a positive step?
Yeah, I'd say it's quite likely, let's say, that this will actually come off, because even from what you're kind of hearing, but is a lot of local investment, like you were mentioning there at the start. I know I saw a lot of local Galway councillors and local people in general were very active on Twitter saying that this would be such a shame and it would be a disaster if Galway WFC weren't to enter next year, given all the talent that they have. And like, they've been in the league for, I think it's 10 years since the inception of it now. So really, like, it would be a disaster to see them not come out for that. Just an interesting one as well, though. I saw there on their social media just yesterday that they are looking to do some fundraisers to fund the remaining, I think it's just 5 games. They're looking to do a Golf Classic fundraiser. So you'd wonder how bad the situation is there. I know there was quotes during the week from the chairperson that said that they won't get change out of 160,000 this year. I'd just love to see how that compares to other WNL teams. I know we probably wouldn't get that, but like, there is a FAI grant they get there of about 50,000, I believe, and then they have a lot of sponsors. You can even see on the original statement. So I just wonder how that will compare to other WNL teams. And I'm not saying that the investment shouldn't be there; it absolutely should. But just where are they making use of the money? And if Galway United are to take it on, will they kind of implement the same cost structure?
I think the key line is Luke Comer and Comer Group have expressed their commitment to support the continuation of women's football at both senior and underage levels in Galway. Like, that's kind of the lead here in a way, because once you've said that, it's very difficult to go back and say, well, we said that, but like, actually we didn't mean senior. We meant, we'll have a team. It'll be like 5-a-side or something. It's like everybody takes that to read that there's going to be a Women's National League team. Galway United is an all-inclusive football club, a club for all of us, and we will be united. It's hard to read that any other way than, look, okay, this is maybe not how we would have handled it.
Yeah.
And the fact that it's so close to the end of the season as well, you would suggest that there is a time limit on this, that releasing a statement means that something has to be done fairly sharpish, Alanna.
I guess as well, it was prefaced though by that financial statement that they do understand there's a lot of financial restraints, and not restraints, but that it would take a lot of work and personnel and effort. But like, there are other things that I suppose could be looked at, but it is interesting that no one is kind of floating them about. I know Sligo Rovers, to facilitate more people coming to the area, the women's team linked up with, it's now known as ATU, so the local university, maybe that would be an option for Galway. And then, you could also question, it was kind of being floated that it would benefit Sligo for Galway not to have a team, that maybe those players would enter that kind of team instead. But really, the travel commitments would be far too fierce there, because let's say the likes of Savannah McCarthy, who's injured at the minute, but one of their standout players is from Kerry. And there's an awful big difference from travelling to Kerry to Galway than Kerry to Sligo. So you'd imagine they would go elsewhere. So as we say, like, for there not to be a team in Galway would be disastrous. But I think, you can read into that statement there, and you can imagine, I'd say, that there hopefully will be a statement in the coming weeks saying that Galway United or some other entity, as they're saying, will take it over.
That geographical point is an interesting one, because like, even Shane Keegan was on Football Saturday with us recently, and he was talking as the Cove Ramblers manager about how he's almost hoping that Cork City get promoted from the first division, because obviously then there's the pool of players that will need to join Cove, geographically speaking. Maybe it's not quite the same from Sligo Rovers and Galway's perspective, but regardless of what way you look at the geography, Alanna, it would be a disaster for women's football in the West if Galway were to not have a team.
It would be, and I think women's football, kind of women's National League and Ireland wide, really, Shane, because it would be such a step back, given all the progress that has been made in recent years and all the media attention that's now coming upon it as well. I think it's interesting because, we're seeing so many players go overseas, and obviously there is quite a lot of, let's say, pressure on the most talented WNL players to do so. If they want to have hopes of getting into the Irish team or anything in that kind of regard, they'd kind of have to do that. But there are other options as well. Like, we have so much homegrown talent, and while they are well capable of going overseas, there's this likes of the Sky bursary program now. I'm pretty sure they announced that Ella Malloy, who's actually one of the under-19s, and you'd see her listed in the senior team. She plays for Wexford. But I think the Sky bursary programme, that will keep the likes of Ella Malloy in the Women's National League for longer, which many people kind of wouldn't agree with, because she'd get her expenses paid and her degree. I think she's going to UCD, but she'll still be able to play football in Wexford. And then you add in on top of that the line during the week that the league might go semi-professional. So, it is kind of all going one way, and in one way, incentivising people to stay in the Women's National League too.
Okay, that semi-pro element hasn't fully been teased out. The first we heard of it was the Galway Women's chairperson on Galway WFC saying, "Oh, that's happening next year, and we won't be able to afford that." And that's kind of one of the things that's accelerating our decision. How semi-professionalism manifests itself with the Women's National League could be anything from, we're hearing £50 a week for the players, like, which is barely expenses, really. It isn't expenses for training. So we'll see exactly what comes from that and where that goes. But on balance, it sounds like Galway United are trying to rally support to have a women's team next year in the league. Is that your read of this?
Yeah, definitely. I believe so, yeah.
All right, Alanna, we'll leave it there. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
It's Alanna Cunnane.